a long time.
The Kingdom of Eswatini, like a true friend, Taiwan, in all areas of cooperation.
As we were discussing, he really was grateful to even talk about the support that Taiwan gets from the kingdom and led by His Majesty himself, to make sure that Taiwan is integrated into the international community.
On another note, the Deputy Prime Minister has also met with the director of Penken, a giant Japanese bakery that has business dealings with Shiselweni Forestry. Penken buys wood chips and planks from Shiselweni Forestry. The company, in its corporate social responsibility agenda, donates its products, which is canned bread, to schools in the Shiselweni region. The company also buys school shoes for needy pupils in Shiselweni. With less than 24 hours before his major assignment in Japan, the Deputy Prime Minister is making every second count. John Molelekeng reporting for Eswatini TV News in Japan's capital, Tokyo.
The Minister of Finance, Neil Reichenbach, says there's no need to panic over the decline of gross official reserves to 7.4 billion emalangeni, covering 2.7 months of imports, which is below the benchmark of 3 months, as government will work with the Central Bank of Eswatini to ensure that they are increased in the coming months. The minister said this when explaining what impact the decline of the reserves will have on the economy.
The recent monetary policy statement by the Central Bank of Eswatini shows a decrease in the country's gross official reserves to 7.4 billion emalangeni, which shows a decline of 2.6 billion emalangeni when compared to the 10 billion emalangeni reported by the bank in July this year. The Minister of Finance, Neil Reichenbach, explains what caused this decline.
When South Africa lifted their rates quite heavily previously, I think we're talking about two months ago, Eswatini, we kept ours down. So we were a half a percentage point, which you call 50 basis points, below the South African rate. It means that Eswatini with loans are paying less. And we were trying to still cushion the impact of the inflation, impact of COVID, impact of the Ukraine-Russia conflict on the economy and on Eswatini. So for that reason, they held back on that. Another factor that does impact reserves is our balance of trade. A balance of trade meaning when it comes to external payments, so imports and exports, are we importing more than what we are exporting, or are we exporting more than importing? So that's what the balance of trade means. And the first bit of the year, the first 4 or 5 months of the year, we actually had a negative trade balance, which is not normal for Eswatini. Normally, we have a positive trade balance, but this was because there's been a lot of growth. One will notice a lot of the big companies are expanding, and during expansion times, they're buying a lot of equipment, buying a lot of things in foreign currency, and that then pushed us into a negative trade balance. With the monetary policy that's been put in place, and with a positive trade balance now, that's as we used to it, it should be able to mean the reserves come back to normal.
The minister further explains how government used about 1.6 billion emalangeni special drawing rights received from the International Monetary Fund early this year.
As Eswatini, we didn't have that problem, and so what we did was we did not, as government, touch a cent of that money. We left it 100% with the central bank, purely to grow reserves and to be able to try and maintain the same reserves we talk about in a healthy state. With the current situation, I think it's proved that we made the right decision.
Early this year, the Central Bank of Eswatini reported that the gross official reserves stood at 9.6 billion emalangeni, which was enough to cover imports of about 3.8 months. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Ngamandla with Mbongwa Dube Mbabane.
The Minister of Tinkhundla had a meeting with chiefs from the Manzini region. The objective of the meeting was to educate and also give the chiefs an opportunity to have a voice regarding the Decentralization Bill. The object of the bill is to decentralize all government services.
The Minister of Tinkhundla Administration and Development, David Ngampalala, says the Decentralization Bill aims to bring government services closer to the people. Ngampalala says once the bill is passed into law, people will be able to get services such as applying for passports and birth certificates in their constituencies.
ema-distance lokufanele ahanjwe abantu kuyawuthola lusita kangabi ngetulu kwemakhilomitha lalishumi noma lasiphohlongo.
The objective of government is that people do not travel more than 8 or 10 kilometers in order to access services. Enacting this bill into an act is of utmost importance, as services will now be brought closer to the people. The Manzini Regional Administrator, Chief Gija, says the role of chiefs will now be to educate the populace throughout the various constituencies in the country about the importance of the bill. This training is important as it outlines the role we need to play to ensure that we preserve peace and harmony among the people through the Tinkhundla system of governance. Chief Mkhumbi of Ngiliji Umphakathi says constituencies will also be included in the government's annual financial budget, which will present constituencies an opportunity to effectively contribute in the country's economic growth. The Tinkhundla system has been wrongfully labeled as a failure. The system was deprived of its rightful authority. This bill affords the Tinkhundla system a chance to operate in its full capacity. The Ministry of Tinkhundla is working on this bill through the support of the United Nations Development Programme. For Eswatini TV News, I'm Thandukuhle Mdluli, Matsapa.
Senators are in full support of the $40,490,000 loan to finance the emergency food production program. Senators in one voice commended government for considering the needs of Eswatini, especially farmers, since farming inputs have become more expensive.
The government of Eswatini has identified a need to assist local farmers in upscaling maize production. This will be achieved through a loan from the African Development Bank that will specifically address the emergency food production program. Senators say that they are in full support of this loan, as the issue of relying to our neighboring countries will soon be over.
Kutawusenta ke lokusine tisimle betingalinya saletilinyo idolo belikhona losito ngokucala nguhulumende kodwa belibuka ihectare yinye kepha lokusesikhuluma selitawubuka 3 hectares
athine ama safeguards nema safety nets ngoba asifuni nathi ukuthi si approve imali la letawube sekukhanza ukuthi kusasa imali ngingasafiki lapho bekufanele iye khona.
Ngiyaqala kuva umthetho lowehla inhlitiyo yami njengemlimi ke nami noko.
The Minister for Finance, Neil Rickenbeck, says the loan will be broken into different parts, which will be the input subsidy and the agriculture fund.
Government is doing this to try to really increase maize production in Eswatini. We're not really going to input subsidies for too many other products, but when it comes to staple food products, especially in a year with this Ukraine crisis, when there could be a global shortage of staple food, it's critical, Madam President, that we actually do get it. We've been chasing year after year, and we're very close right now. About 140,000 tons of maize is needed, and the last season we produced 127,000 tons of maize. So it's been coming up gradually year by year. The input subsidy is really working and really assisting.
Minister Neil stated that when rice and wheat prices shoot up, Eswatini should be able to have enough maize. For Eswatini TV News, Ndomlangeni Mbonga Dube, Parliament.
Senators are ecstatic about the Tinkhundla Empowerment Fund, which seeks to help in ensuring that Tinkhundla centers get the maintenance they deserve. Some senators felt that there's a need to increase the 50,000 limit. The senators were speaking during the Tinkhundla Empowerment Fund debate.
Senators, when debating the Tinkhundla Empowerment Fund, stated that the fund will help in empowering Tinkhundla Council to independently procure goods and services up to 50,000 emalangeni. Some senators felt that the money is not enough, as they felt that it should be considered that imiphakathi also receive the same boost.
lesisimo nenhlitiyo yelive leMaswati nje kasibonge kakhulu ngoba bokumangala ukuthi Tinkhundla uthi kungekutona manje kusingenisa eParliament imithetho yakhona konke lokuhamba ngathi kuze wahamba uyayela uyashona phansi.
1 imali incane. 2 kuthiwa Tinkhundla empowerment. Uyathi ngisho nemndeni wami mengameli nga 50,000 angisakhoni kunaka ngisho lo wami mina umndeni. Lapha siyonaka Inkhundla nga 50,000.
Landlela livesi le mali. Ngani mavele petty cash lo ngalivla idolo indlo. Sinethe sakhuluma ngapetty cash nasikhuluma enye Inkhundla nasiyibuka sintwanyana nje lelapha kani sisho inhlitiyo neinjini yelive.
The Minister for Finance, Neil Rockenberg, says exceptions will be made should an Tinkhundla have a budget exceeding 50,000 emalangeni.
The 50,000 is purely there as a cut-off. So certain management happens below and certain management happens if it's above. And we agree with the House as finance. We think that there's a clever way to actually cut off to make sure there's not too much management going in there. One Tinkhundla Centre there can be 3 chiefdoms or there can be 7 chiefdoms under the same Tinkhundla Centre. So the moment now one starts bringing in elements of Umphakathi or the chiefs, for instance, into the decision-making process taking place keep in mind, this is no longer a fund. The chiefs do get involved in the micro projects, RDF discussions and thinking. But when you're talking of the Tinkhundla Centre itself, the actual building, who's buying the paperwork, what paint are we buying, who's fixing the window paints, to now bring the chiefs into that discussion, I really think is an overkill.
Minister Rockenberg says administrative functions of the fund include the maintenance and operational expenses of the Tinkhundla centers across the country. For Eswatini TV News, Ndomlangeni Mbonga Dube, Parliament.
The Public Accounts Committee has ordered the Ministry of Education to bring supporting documents for an over-expenditure of above 210,000 emalangeni paid for maintaining a photocopier machine. The committee says these documents should include the contract signed by the ministry and the company maintaining the machine.
The compliance audit report of government for the financial year ended March 2021 states that Matsatsa suppliers provided a sharp photocopier machine to the Ministry of Education and Training. Monthly service fees for the machine were found by the Auditor General to have escalated to over 433,000 emalangeni. This amount was found to have been an overcharge of more than 210,000 emalangeni and exceeded provisions of their contract.
Nalengena contract noma umshini musha iba khona le rapid assistant in charge isihlala sikhona nje leso but lesingakugadi kuloko sina umusha sitawugada ukuthi bese kuba ne replacement of parts ngilapho la ufuna isebenza isikhashana before my replacement of parts umshini lokhu understand ama charges zoba sho sine si rely ekutheni la contract bayabhala ukuthi ini imali lokho lokunye nje bangishilo nakuqala ukuthi asadlo ukuthi nakathi imvungu ngishintshe elibhande asakutshengisa la liphese nomuntu enalo noma kunjani thina because the contract is kawa ukuthi umfu sebenza in good faith.
Members of the Public Accounts Committee made their contributions on the matter.
But very you still in the extra 200,000. That's the query if you are as much as Nasai Nabuti Vile Mangabe Mabe Buddha went down number 26,000 million. But the Malin say double.
Economy the free charge, which was maybe a year or what.
Kube nema supporting document ukuthi kwenziwa yini ukuthi sibhadale le mali lenginkulu kangaka yini lesenta ukuthi singabe sisayilandzela le contract.
Ngibuka nje lokho replaceeka lokuthi lo mshini asolimele sonjani masinyane sodzinga lo ngonakelwa kwabo ingisihlalo into vele lesibhekile ukuthi lokho akureplace but le ndlela leseyendeka lapha ngiyo lesenta lo ngathi sesibanako lokuthi awu la and ephinde futhi sekuba sekuba ne-overcharge lendlula up to 200,000 esihlalo.
The committee also noted that the ministry bought the machine but had to pay Matsatsa suppliers 15 cents per copy. For Eswatini TV News, Temgosi Mavimbela with Themba Shabangu, Parliament.
The Auditor General has found that UNESWA paid employees through e-wallet for university expenses. E-wallet is a cell phone banking platform used by FNB customers to send money instantly. The Auditor General says there were no receipts for the paid items at times.
The University of Eswatini's financial challenges have pushed the tertiary institution to use cell phone banking platform e-wallet to pay for certain services and items. Money was sent to staff members' phones who were sent to buy those items for the university. The issue identified by the Auditor General was that there were no receipts for some of these payments.
Chairperson ukhanda ukuthi inqesi bayothenga into abo 2000 abo 1000 ukuthi singathi akakeshe i-debt mhlambe ya 30,000 ukuze lothola ube nenkinga ke besigcina ke sithi especially ka maintenance uthi ufuna ukuthenga into i-fuel ipita nje 1000 2000 asikunike i-wallet udasilethela ema-receipts nasoqedze lokho lokubhadala. It is true Chairperson sikubonile ke lokho ukuthi ku-fraud with risk ngoba asisishoke ukuthi ulaba athenge khona le tinto vele nalama receipts kungo sigcine ke sesike in order to circumvent this siya introduce ke ma debit cards kusho ukuthi for each campus utaba ne debit card.
Public Accounts Committee Chairperson Muzi Gunene was puzzled by this.
2,000 to spend on fuel and other expenses is noted in the voucher. However, no receipt were obtained for this employee as a proof of expenditure and whether the amount was actually utilized to purchase the fuel and the other expenses.
The university was also found to have paid its executive allowances for late meetings, while this was illegal. The university says this has stopped. For Eswatini TV News, Temgosi Mavimbela with Muzim Konda, Parliament.
The Minister of Health says it is on high alert for possible spillover of measles outbreak from Zimbabwe to Eswatini. The Director of Health Services, Dr. Vusi Makakula, says the ministry's surveillance team is always on the lookout to ensure diseases are detected before they cause an outbreak in the country.
According to the United Nations Children's Fund in Zimbabwe, 700 children have lost their lives since April this year due to measles. The Director of Health Services, Dr. Vusi Makakula, says because Eswatini is a neighbor to Zimbabwe, the ministry is closely monitoring the situation locally.
We put our target at 90%. We need 90% of all our children under 5 be vaccinated against measles and others, but we are talking about measles today. And then as a country, we are now standing at slightly more than 86%, which is scaling up, it's closing up the gap to the 90% where the herd immunity takes best effect. So we are not doing bad about that. And what we would like to see is we would like to see parents bringing their children.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in Africa states that measles can spread through coughing and sneezing. It can also spread if people breathe contaminated air or touch infected surfaces, then touch their eyes, noses and mouths. Symptoms in children include high fever, rash and coughing. Prevention is through vaccination and good hygiene practices. For Eswatini TV News, Nelson Langamandla with Themba Shabangu, Mbabane.
Dear viewers, now take a short commercial break.
Do you have a license for this thing?
It's the OK Cross Country Birthday Trolley Dash, and you can stand a chance to win a trolley load full of groceries. Also save on Rama Original 70% fat spread for just $19.99, Raid Insecticide for just $23.99, and Sunlight 2-in-1 hand washing powder at only $54.99. Only at OK. Owners you can count on.
I am Eswatini.
Eswatini at the Luju Festival. I've just done my demonstration and it was on fire.
I take you through those cooking home.
I bake a lot of cakes. There's such a vibe here, and what I'm loving is like the fashion, the food. It's just this really amazing combination of lifestyle, understanding, acknowledging and celebrating what makes us different, what makes us diverse, but also what makes us beautiful as Africans.
I just won the junior chef competition. I was very excited because cooking was one of the most favorite things I love doing.
Alright, let me start with my first recipe. So, I've got some raspberries that go on top and some mint. We love, love, love Luju.
It's a beautiful thing, it's a beautiful theme, and I think it should be a daily theme for Africa from here on into the future.
Welcome back. You're still watching Eswatini TV, and for sports news tonight, Premier League of Eswatini is in a tug of war with Rangers and Milling Hotspurs. The two clubs are claiming to have been unfairly treated when a decision was taken to relegate 4 teams, while the rules and regulations of the 2021-2022 Premier League season state that only 2 teams will be relegated at the end of the season.
Premier League of Eswatini held a meeting this past weekend to outline different issues ahead of the new season. The issue that took center stage is of the 2 clubs being Rangers and Milling Hotspurs, who feel like the way they got relegated is totally against the rules and the regulations of the 2021-2022 season that they played under, where only 2 teams were supposed to be relegated instead of 4 teams.
Taking a notice of agency emotion lefakwe maqembu amabili i-Rangers ne-Milling Hotspurs inkantolo lenkulu High Court lambabani le sithi ngakuthi i-Premier League of Eswatini ihambe yophendula bukile ke lokhu libandla bekhona lathi cha Premier League akahamba kukhulumisana nabantu baka Football Association futhi sibe nekucela ummeli we-Football Association ukuthi abe nokusimelela kulenzamo so sidabe sibelele ngibabe mdladla Semba kusuta silungisele amaphepha natawuhamba yosiphendulela kule cala le sibekwe bona. Emotion lefakwe High Court i-Rangers ne-Milling ikhala ngekuthi babonakala banyatheleke emalungelo abo ngoba ema-rules and regulations labanawo bona 21-22 season athi ku-relegator 2 emacembu ka-Premier League. Manje bona bathi basimkhathini wemacembu langu-4 la-relegatiwe. Manje ngekucela kwabo enkantolo ukuthi babukete ukuthi banyathele kanjani ngoba bona ama-rules abasibawaphethe anale relegation ya 2 ema-clubs.
Premier League of Eswatini also touched on different issues that are in line with the preparations of the new season that kicks off this coming weekend. For Eswatini TV Sports, Fabrice Msonera, Babani.
That is all we had for tonight, but before we wrap up, we'll take a recap of today's headlines. The Deputy Prime Minister Themba Masuku, who is in Japan, has met with former Taiwanese ambassador to the Kingdom of Eswatini, Peter Tsai. Senators are in full support of the $40,490,000 United Dollars loan to finance the emergency food production program. The Minister of Finance, Neil Reikenbeck, says there's no need to panic over the decline of gross official reserves to 7.4 billion Malangeni. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin tonight. Up next is the weather forecast for selected towns. Good night, Eswatini.